Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Welcome back to The Last Honest Place, at least in these United States. The Nathan Ivey Show. Good morning to you. Your morning destination for interesting conversation. Broadcasting live from beautiful Cincinnati, Ohio. Want to give you a heads up. Coming up in about an hour from now, about 9 a.m. approximately, so really about 45 minutes, I'm scheduled to connect with a brother named Napoleon Maddox. There's an event happening here in the city of Cincinnati that you might be interested in. And plus, he's a longtime friend, so we'll get a chance to connect with him. He's an artist and a member. I don't know if Is What is still a thing or not. I can't wait to talk to him, and I always love our conversation. So look for that about 9 a.m., and who knows where the conversation might go. Along the way, many things to talk about, including my son had a dream last night that someone was attacking Cincinnati. My son had a dream last night that somebody, as I just said, was attacking Cincinnati. And he was like, there was explosions. This is my son. My son's 7 years old. I'm like, we don't let you look at violent content. Where are you getting this from? It's the never-ending coverage of the war in Ukraine. And he's like, Dad, what are those two? It was because of those two countries that are attacking. One's attacking the other one. I'm like, how do you know this? Well, he lives in a household where the adults look at the news in the morning, and it's everywhere. You can't get away from it. And I'm not saying we shouldn't cover it, but I'm just saying it's just amazing how the media, when it's a war, they snap close. They snap to it real quick, don't they? 100% war coverage, wall-to-wall war. You learn all kind of things about, how war is committed. I learned within the last 24 hours that there's something called a thermobaric bomb. Thermobaric bomb that allegedly the Russians have just detonated in the Ukraine. A thermobaric bomb. And essentially what it does is it's like two explosions. Like one is it ignites some kind of explosive substance, and then it sucks in all of the air in close proximity. Some have said that it can destroy, it can explode a person's lungs. So like if you're close to a thermobaric bomb, when it goes off, it's going to suck in so much oxygen. It's going to make you burst your lungs. I'm like, this is the kind of shit. We got time to come up with this. Who's coming up with this? But this is what you know. I mean, you go to Huffington Post, you go to CNN, war, and more war. And there's got to be an effect. Like I said, my son's having nightmares about it. So on top of everything else, you got the Karens and the Darrens. We got the COVID. We got the mask mandates, which now may not be mandates anymore. I've been reading that in Columbus, they're thinking about ending their mandate really, really soon, which means that Cincinnati and other cities in the Midwest will follow. We already know, if they haven't already done it. For black folks, you got all kind of whole nother set of issues you got to deal with. And on top of that, you got the fear of nuclear annihilation. Shout out to Christian Boykin last night. I thought it was a great show with the Echo Chamber podcast here on CDM. He was talking about this. If you're not plugged in, you should check that brother out. He's doing a great job. And join the committee of senators. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. But he was discussing this last night as I was watching the show. I thought it was interesting, just thought-provoking. Appreciate the conversation. And it's our kids. Like, what do you tell your kids about war? So now I'm going to have to tell my son all about it, which, me, I'm not reluctant at all. I'll sit down and tell him everything that I know. He's like, Dad, what are those two countries that are fighting each other? One invade the other. He's 7 years old. I'm like, how you get this? He get it from his mom and daddy. That's where he gets it. Let's talk about some stories to get your day started. If you live here in the city of Cincinnati, Ironetta Wright is the new CPS superintendent. That's a picture of her right there. Yeah, a little bit of a shock for some. Because, I can't tell you that I was close to the process. Maybe you were, and you're like, hey, she was a front runner no matter what. And I've been told that through the grapevine, so to speak. But she worked with Detroit public schools. And she is now going to be your new superintendent. I think they're going to put her in place soon. She's in the tri-state area right now. I seen pictures last night. I seen some pictures of her and Cedric Denson and Ozzie Davis and others last night. And a principal from over at Fairview. I'm like, damn, motherfuckers be moving fast. Damn. But she's your new superintendent. And I don't know. I mean, I'd heard good things about TNA Amat. As I understand it, she's going to stay on and be like a deputy superintendent, which is the job she already had. But I don't know. I don't know if I should be surprised by this. You know, part of me felt like if you're the interim and you've been here in Cincinnati, you got the inside track. But it was a unanimous decision by the board. Unanimous. And maybe that's an indication that Ironetta Wright just blew them away in the process. I did get a chance to spend about a good 30, 40 minutes last night just doing as much research as I could in terms of looking at the various resumes of the three finalists. And her resume did stand out. But CPS went through a whole process with this, and apparently she was the one who unanimously, all the school board members said, we got to have her. So now this sister is going to come and lead our public school system. And I saw at least a couple of my Facebook friends were not happy about it. And maybe that's the wrong way to put it, but I read some comments online. People were like, wait a minute. That school system is a failing school system. Why would we come here? Where's the track record of success? We want a track record of success for our new superintendent. Is that fair? I don't know. You have to tell me. At 513-873-7134. I will say that Cincinnati will never reach its apex as long as our public school systems are underserving our students. It's never going to happen. Dale writes, what did she bring that the other candidates didn't have? I wasn't that close to the process. I can't tell you. Anthony writes, I thought they would stay in-house. Same here, Anthony. I thought they would stay in-house. Is it fair to say what did is it fair to say what did Amat do wrong? Is that a fair question? Or is there a better way of asking that question? You get the inside track. You've been an intern. You've been here for years. You're the assistant. But sometimes a candidate comes in and you just get that feeling like, oh, that's the one. That's the one. And she'll be in place now. Now, you know, my gut is I feel differently about it. Like you get different things out of it. At the end of the day, you want the best candidate, no matter whether it's internal or external. But if you get an internal candidate, they already know the city. They're already here. They already know the major players. They already know who's who and what's what. They don't have to learn that. The bad part about that, or the other side of that, is that they're so close to what it's been that maybe they can't take us to what we want it to be. And if you get somebody from the outside, they can come in with a fresh lens. And sure, it'll take them some time to learn the ropes and learn the difference between the east side and the west side and who you can trust and who you can't trust, if you can trust anybody in that position. It'll take her some time to learn that, but once she does, she'll have a fresh lens. She won't be as closely tied to what we've been doing that it'll stop her from doing what we need to do. That's the two ways of looking at it in my head. For the people who say, well, that school system is a failing school system, and please share this on Facebook, in those Facebook places where you know that, like, you know, concerned CPS parents are and things like that, family. I really appreciate you because they might want to join the conversation. Somebody's writing, justice for Gabe Tay, clean house. Now, she ain't a part of none of that. She's not a part of any of that. So when she comes in, she's going to have a different feeling about some of that stuff. I never met Amat, but I know multiple people who said great things about her. And these are people, it's a very diverse crowd of people. But I never met her, never got a chance to interview her. So I don't know. I don't know. But so what is your gut? I mean, that's all we have right now. What is your gut about the hiring of this new, of a new superintendent? And she's coming from Detroit. Let me start a pot here a little bit. Let me get a little bit more provocative a little bit and ask this question, which is, I've seen this, and this was Choppers. Choppers posted, because Choppers don't give a damn. Like when Choppers got an opinion, we got an opinion, period. But I saw some people on Facebook post, like, wait a minute, she's coming from a failing school district. Why we want you here? Is that fair? Goddamn right it's fair. But how important is it? And do we know enough of the particulars of where we were to really put that at her doorstep? I don't know. I got a lot of question marks this morning. But what's on your mind? 513-873-7134. Yeah, look at CPS they got major problems. And they also got major successes. So they got a little bit of both. In terms of the problems, we got a largely black school district. And in a lot of these schools, we got a race problem. We got a race problem. Bias, implicit bias. It's real. It's happening every single day in our CPS schools, the elementary schools and the high schools, including Walnut Hills High School. It's happening everywhere. And I know the CPS put these new policies in place, but what does that mean? I don't know. She's coming in post Gabriel Tay or Taye. Gabriel Taye. That's a little boy that committed suicide after he was being bullied, and CPS representatives didn't do what they were supposed to do. And then CPS went to court to try to not take responsibility, and that didn't go so well. They settled recently. As a parent, I've still received nothing about any new strategies or anything new whatsoever as it relates to that case. Even though it's supposed to be some big time settlement, it's going to be some oversight. Parents want to know. Educationally, you got a lot of these schools that are failing with a capital F. It's like a big old F. It's like a big old flag of failure at some of these schools. So you got to address that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got to deal with all of that. That's the job. That's why you get the big bucks. This is what it is. And parents don't give a damn whether we want results, right? The community wants results. Everybody wants results. And apparently CPS board says she's the woman to lead us into the next few years. So, I mean, I have to trust their judgment on that. I mean, we elected them to make these decisions. They made a decision. It is what it is. For me, I didn't have a favorite candidate. I didn't have a dog in the race. I mean, whoever the board thinks is the most qualified, I'll go with that. This is who they say is most qualified. So we'll see. I wish her the best. Now she got to come in and deal with the CFT. Now she got to come in and deal with parents. Now she got to come in and deal with the Cincinnati politics. Now she got to come in and deal with the Cincinnati business community. Yeah, I said it. Now she got to deal with the board. She got to deal with all of this. You know, I mean, it's a big job. And I think it's super important. And again, at this point, I will rest on the decisions of the board. I mean, again, that's why we elected them. So now we elected them. They've made a decision. I'm going to go with it. I wish her the best. You know, what can parents do, right? That should be the question. The question should be, what can we do to help assist her and this new regime into the future? I think that's the best way of looking at it. But let me go to the phones. We got an early phone call here. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Nate. This is DeVoe Sherman. How you doing?
Good morning. You said, who is this again?
DeVoe.
Hey, what's
Sherman.
up, DeVoe?
What's going on, man? It won't be too long, but I see all the comments and everything, but I just want us to be mindful that as we're bringing in a new superintendent, be mindful that regardless of who we bring in, I still feel like the accountability has to be on the community as well. CPS has a school community. That's why they have the community buildings that they have, community resource learning center. So, but again, that's a whole nother issue. But I feel like at the same time, we have to ensure that we still do our part. Like we volunteer, we go mentor, we're actively in the schools doing something to kind of help contribute to the success or, whatever that may look like to a certain individual. I feel like everybody has to still play their role, even though we're bringing in somebody. We still have a board that we have to keep accountable as well. As you said, there's been a lot of times where they failed. But again, who's keeping them accountable and who's still voting for, the same people that are there? Are we keeping those type of people accountable? So again, I feel like we have to take some ownership and say, okay, we have this superintendent, we have this board. Now what's going to happen next? What are we going to do? That's the question that we have to ask ourselves. And after we figure out what we're going to do, now we can go and tell them, hey, what are y'all going to do? This is what we're doing. How can we help? How can we help? How can we contribute to what's going on? Or how can we prevent what's going on? Or can we be a part of the decision making? Or, just something, I don't know. I just really, it's so easy to point the finger and blame somebody for bringing in somebody. But at the same time, you have a board that brought somebody in. So people keep saying, what's she going to do? Well, what is the board going to do? So it's all I'm saying is this. My end of the argument is just saying, again, don't put the accountability on one person to resolve all these internal, external issues. That's all I got for you. Thank you.
All right, brother. Thanks for the call. I can't disagree with what he had to say. Can't disagree at all. I think the one person that I hold accountable for my children is me. I don't hold the school accountable for my children. They have a job to do, but I'm the primary. Me and wifey the primary for our children. We do that. You know what I'm saying? Hell, if there were no school system, if we couldn't get them to school, we're responsible to educate them. So I agree with that. But in a moment like this, of course, people are going to have all kind of opinions. And I think some of the things I heard, I think they're valid. People are like, oh, she from Detroit. What did Detroit do? Okay, that's fair. Okay, is it fair to put that all in her? I think you got to look at their degrees of it as well. So, is the school system in Detroit better than what it was before she got there? Did she show some improvement, even if it was incremental? I think that matters. And apparently the board, the board is smart people. These are not unintelligent people. These are very intelligent people on the school board. Every last one of them are very intelligent. They're not dumb people. And I don't believe in one bit they're going to just throw a dart at the wall. I don't believe that at all. I think they did their due diligence for people, for the community. I think they did it, and this is what they came up with. Is anybody surprised that it was unanimous? For whatever reason, it's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. But for whatever reason, I'm like, was she just that good of a candidate? Was this just that much of a difference between her and the other two candidates? There was 3 finalists. One's a black male, the other 2 black females. One of them was the interim. The black male is from Middletown. She's from Detroit. She got the job. Was it that much of a gulf between them, or was there like, hey, we need to all be on the same page? Maybe there was just that much of a gulf between them. Let me go to the phones here. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, comrade.
Good morning, Black Russian.
What's up?
What's on your mind, brother?
Hey, I'm cool with the hire. My whole thing was, it's just going to be 10 AMI. That was my whole thing. And I said, why? Well, because, again, she was the deputy superintendent when all that stuff went down with Gabriel Taye. And I just feel like that was, for me, as a taxpayer, that was a big deal. We had $3 million to go out the door. I understand she wasn't the superintendent at the time. But as a deputy, it just seems like she had a direct channel to the superintendent's office to say, hey, we need to shut this down, pay this money, stop this litigation, and walk away.
Well, how do we know she didn't? How do we know she didn't? She might have voiced that opinion behind closed doors, but it's still the superintendent and or the board's call.
Well, I just don't think that happened. I'm going to just go out there on a limb and say it. I don't have any facts to back that up, but I'm just going to say I don't think that happened. I mean, she could have went to the press. She could have did a lot of stuff.
She go to the press, she lose her
job.
job.
That was really top of the mind. What's that?
I mean, she go to the press, she lose her job now.
Hey, you can leak to the press. There's all types of ways to get messages out here to the public. If she really felt any type of way about it, I just don't think she gave a damn. Like you said, it was about her job. So, like, hey, we're putting the job over the safety of a child. Then we got a whole nother problem.
Really?
But for me, that as a taxpayer, I just couldn't see her as being the superintendent. That was just I was biased in that. I wasn't surprised she was a finalist. She was in interim. But at the end of the day, for me, it was between the guy from Middletown and the lady from Detroit. And so if they picked between them two, I didn't really care. I would have preferred to see the brother. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know. Have we ever had a black male superintendent before?
I don't believe so. Not in my recollection.
And look, you got about like a decade. So I thought that would have been groundbreaking. That'd have been some history. But the lady from Detroit, I'm cool with that. And I keep seeing people like, well, why would we get somebody from Detroit? Like CPS is so much better than Detroit public schools. Like she has the ability to manage. Apparently, and there's more kids in Detroit public schools than there are Cincinnati public. And plus, she had 25 years teaching and being an administrator in Florida too. Like to me, her resume was the best. I mean, even the brother from Middletown. Like I would like to see him, but Middletown district ain't as big as Cincinnati's. He may be able to do some innovative stuff on a smaller scale, but the question probably would have been, can he do it on a scale of a mid-sized, population such as Cincinnati public? I think at the end of the day, with her experience from teaching all the way up, being in 2 different states, to me, it just seemed like her resume was just like probably, like you said, a step above everybody else. And shout out to Ben Lindy. Apparently, he got a unanimous vote. I'm sure he, worked his hand and got everybody on board.
You're right. It's that damn Ben Lindy. That's who did it with his mind control over the board.
Mr. President.
Mr. President. All right, Black Russian. Thanks for the call, man.
All right, take it easy, comrade.
I got to catch up with Ben Lindy. He said he'd come on the show. I seen him when AFTAB was being no, that wasn't when he was inaugurated. It was something they did over at the park. I think that was their inauguration. Yeah, it was the inauguration over at Washington Park. He said he'll come on the show. I just haven't got a chance to reach back out to him. But he says, but I would agree. So I think it was the Inquirer. Shout out to my friends at the Inquirer. They put out the resumes of the 3 candidates, and I will agree. I ain't shitting on nobody's resume or anything like that. Excuse my language. Lord, forgive me for my brash delivery. But I saw the resumes, and I agree. I thought her resume stood out as well. In a lot of different ways. I thought her resume stood out. That was just my opinion of it. But again, I want to get your opinion about it. 513-873-7134. What is your gut? Irenetta Wright is now going to be the new CPS as Cincinnati Public Schools Superintendent. She's going to lead the district for the next few years. And she's inheriting a lot of good things. There's a lot of good things about the Cincinnati Public School System. And a lot of challenges. So welcome to Cincinnati. And she's here and she's in it because I saw her on the photograph. I saw her with Cedric Denson and Ozzie Davis and a principal from over at Fairview. Who else was in the picture? It was somebody else. What's her sister's name? I just saw her over the weekend. Anyway, she meeting the peoples. She meeting the folks. She gonna learn the lay of the land. I'm sure people gonna pull it to the side and say, "Look, let me help you, sis. You already know how this works." And, the good thing about it is that she's not from CPS, so she's going to have a fresh perspective. Do you think that's a good thing? And, perhaps it was unanimous, not because Ben Lindy used his X-Men his mutant powers, and that is to get people to do what he wants them to do. Don't talk to Ben Lindy too long. You just, whatever you say, Mr. Lindy, I'm joking. Just having some fun with it. But, perhaps it was she just stood out heads and above between the other two finalists, including an internal finalist. I don't know. It seems like in these cases, typically it seems like the internal candidate usually gets the job because everybody know them and they know everybody. It didn't work that way this time. But let me go to your chat. Gladys writes, good morning, Nathan Choppers. Beautiful Tuesday. Oh, it's going to be an excellent Tuesday. Immediately after the show, I'm hitting the streets. I'll be over at the park getting it in for a good 90 minutes. Then we're going to hit these weights. I'm back to the plates. I've been waiting for the weather to change. Pat writes, good morning. Good morning to you, Pat. Good morning. Good to see you, family. Glenn's in the house. Glenn writes, morning, Nathan Choppers. Flows ready to eat for everybody. Hashtag Flow Debo. David writes, theme music activated. Tracy writes, hi. Tanika writes, good morning, Nathan Choppers. Eloise is in the house. Good morning, Elo. She writes, good morning, happy Tuesday. It's going to be a beautiful Tuesday. People going to be out and smiling, taking their mask off today. They're going to be walking and exercising, playing ball. It's going to be a beautiful day. Enjoy every minute of it. Janice writes, good morning. Jerome, okay. Oh, it's the cousins. Okay, we got family in the house. Cool. Regina writes, good morning. Victoria writes, good morning. Charles writes, good morning. Brenda writes, good morning. Tiff writes, morning. Kelly is on YouTube. She writes, good morning. TNT is in the house. Shaba Zulu writes, let this be a joyous day. I am Shaba. Anthony writes, I thought they would stay in house. I did too. Let's go back to the phones. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning, dear brother. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Sister Iris, what's going on?
Good. I just wanted to weigh in a little bit on the selection of our newest superintendent, Ms. Harrington. And this has nothing to do with her, what I'm about to say. Of course, her resume is as great as she is. The Cincinnati that is slightly topsy-turvy. So believe you me, the business district weighed in on the decision, as well as the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. I was told that there was a 3-on-3 vote with the swing vote that tipped it in Ms. Harrington's favor. It was real tight. It was a very difficult decision to make. And so what I am slightly cautious about and curious is that in this time, why did we go outside? Because I didn't hear when I listened, I didn't hear a referendum of why Ms. Amont was not selected. And I wanted to hear that. I wanted to understand based on the growth, based on the engagement, and based on the grades that we had seen. Now, we do know there was some internal strife. It was a huge fight around the assessments to understand where the students were, getting children-centered, getting a focus around children and the learning. We do know that was huge. And we do know that CFT did not appreciate being asked to do some assessments around the students. So we do know there was some internal strife. And not that it should have cost the appointment, but we know that Cincinnati will do that. It can be petty as hell in these parts, and especially when it's Black leadership, and more specifically when it's Black women that are leading. And so what I'm concerned about is when the new superintendent does come in, her time to get acclimated, to get used to understand who she can trust, who she can't, and then how does she execute her plan to bring the district to where it most certainly needs to go. And I did call into the board last night and ask specifically which way did the board members vote, because I know the unanimous vote was to accept the resolution for optics to show Ms. Harrington that she had a mandate. But I was told that it was hard.
She was saying Harrington. I thought her last name was Wright.
What's her name? I'm sorry. I was looking at something. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Ms. Wright.
Right, Ms. Wright.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so I was told it was very difficult for the board members to make a decision. However, I do believe that once a decision like this is made, as they do other decisions, that it should be public and that we should know which way people vote because we give them our vote. We do know that the community weighed in. I participated in a community session several of them, to give my voice and thought, not just on the superintendent, but where I believe the district could go and advance. I now have grandchildren in the district. I do pay for it by way of my taxes, so I believe my voice should be heard. But I don't think it was as easy as people are assuming, and I think that unanimous vote to support the resolution for Ms. Wright is different than the vote for who each board member wanted to be.
Okay, thank you for that.
So I wanted to weigh in on that.
So you're saying behind closed doors, it was a lot more. It was a lot closer behind closed doors.
Absolutely. And I did ask that question last night at the board meeting, and they didn't answer for whatever reason. But I, as a taxpayer, as one who follows the district, one who volunteers in the district, one who donates time, energy, and money to the district, I wanted to know how each board member voted. So I just wanted to weigh in on that. And I wish Ms. Wright success, because if she has success, then our children, the district looks like 70% of us, then the children succeed. So I'm not saying all this so she can't, but I am saying that we all know that there's some barriers in this town, and sometimes there are blocks and barricades to block the effort of doing well. I think Ms. Amat was doing a great job with what she had. I think she was doing extremely well and being available to communities. She attended Woke Wednesdays way before she stepped into the role of the interim superintendent when Lauren Mitchell was superintendent. And see, I look at what was. I'm not looking at, right now. I'm looking at what one did in their career. She did come here from another city. She stayed. She started as a teacher. So, I looked at resumes too. And although Ms. Wright had a little bit more, it was what the impact and quality is of where you are that works for me. So I just wanted to weigh in and say that, dear brother.
I'm glad you did.
Get that off my chest and let you know that it was closer than what we think, and it wasn't just unanimous. The unanimous was for the resolution.
Okay.
And when you have the board members in your studio and you have them on, ask them about
I will.
the vote.
Believe me, I will.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. I appreciate that. Yeah, because I don't want to be. I want to be as correct as possible, and that makes more sense to me. I like hearing her say that, and that makes sense. That makes sense. Appreciate the correction on that. The clarification. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now I can see that. So yeah, I will. I'll reach out to each and every board member and ask them why they voted for her, because I think it's a fair question. I mean, I don't have a dog in a race, but I was hearing all these good things about Tiana Imant. And so what's the difference between her and this sister coming in from Detroit, Ironetta Wright? Like, what's the difference between the two of them in the minds of the board members, right? I think we need to know. And we will find out, hopefully. Good morning to you. Good morning, Choppers. Carmiar, good morning. What did she bring that the other candidates didn't have? Fair question. Jenny writes, good morning, Nathan and Choppers. Happy Tuesday. Jared writes, I was surprised interim superintendent Amat didn't get it. I thought she did a great job considering the circumstances. Yeah, said to the wifey last night, she told me she was the best way to put it. But my question to her, my gut was, what did Amat do wrong? She's like, well, maybe it's not anything she did wrong. Maybe it's something else. But I'm like, in the minds of the board members, she must have come up short in some way because she's already here and already doing it. Your guess is as good as mine. Nat writes, good Tuesday, Nate and the Choppers. Good morning to you. What's up, Ballhead's back? What up, Ballhead? It's been a minute, man. You raised good morning. Kevin writes, why do we want them to stay in-house when we have said that our system isn't great here? Fair question. Gregson, a.k.a. Black Russia, writes, good morning. I'm just glad Amat wasn't made permanent. Hashtag justice for Gabriel Taye. Hashtag clean house. I still don't share your critiques of her. I don't know if that's what really happened. I don't know if it's fair to put that on her doorstep. I really don't, because the actions or the inactions happened at the school. And then the decision was made over her head. She didn't make that decision. It was a superintendent and or the school board members or in some kind of consultation. They made that decision about what to do with the lawsuit with Gabriel Taye in consultation with their lawyers. It wasn't necessarily her. At the same time, was she a part of the administration when this happened? Kinda. I mean, she worked at CPS, but I don't know if it's fair to blame her. Jared writes, good morning, hashtag team and I. Hey, good to see you, Jared. Roots Tafari writes, morning, choppers. Kevin writes, don't winning teams generally get their coaches from losing teams? Huh? No. I'm going to go with no on that one. Rosemary's in the house. She writes, good morning. Hey, good to see you, Rosemary. Tyree writes, time for change, too much inside drama. I'm not afraid to speak my truth. Hashtag CPS educator. What's up, Tyree? Well, speak your truth then, man. 513-873-7134. Or you can type your truth. Either way. Time for change, too much drama, too much inside drama. Are you implying that Tiani Amat brought a lot of drama? Is that what you're implying? That's what I'm reading. Let me put it that way. That's what I'm reading from your statement, Tyree. Is that what you were trying to convey? I'm curious. Craig writes, CPS should be sued for already knowing it would hire a black female for the position. Black men were at a disproportionate disadvantage as in the NFL. You funny for that. You're funny for that. Nat writes, is that like hiring a coach from the last place team? Braxton writes, facts in getting someone from outside. Plus, coming from a big urban school district, she'll understand how things should operate in a mid-sized urban district. I would have preferred the brother, but she'll dude. Hashtag alternative. Sakina writes, good morning, Nathan. Good morning, Sakina. Jerome writes, new blood, new mindset. Okay. Roots Tafari writes, if she's coming from a failing school system, I'm really not comfortable with that. Mika writes, good morning, choppers. Time to secure the bag. Wait, the new superintendent is coming from a failing district. What is she going to do for CPS? And then a very sad face emoji. Let me jump on Spreaker. Sharp writes, good morning, Nathan Choppers. It's the first day of March. Yes, it is. Whether spring is here, whether it's about to change or it's changing, like in a good way, not climate change. People about to be out. Ashley writes, good morning, Nathan and Choppers. Happy Social Work Month to me and the Choppers that are social workers. I'm with it. Chocolate Girl Wonder writes, good morning, Choppers. Fox writes, rise and shine, young stars. CG Dub writes, she was in the picture with Steve Sipple, who was the principal of Fairview, and Kelly Prather. Right. Exactly. Yeah, I'm like, damn. She out already. Black Russia writes, y'all ishing on DPS like CPS is gold. Detroit school district built like Cincinnati. One great magnet high school and everything else mediocre. Why? Because of parents, not teachers, administrators. Huh? What? Carmio writes, the fact that she's coming from a failing district says a lot. Why? Shannon, good morning to you. She writes, maybe that's why she left. For a school district to be successful, everyone has to participate. It's not just dropping them off and picking them up. Charles writes, Grand Risings, Nate and the Choppers. Good morning to you, Charles. Nakia writes, good morning, everyone. Black Russia writes, y'all setting expectations too high for the new superintendent. Y'all want her to take CPS from D to A overnight? That would be perfect. Although unrealistic. She can't do that without parental buy-in. No, superintendent should have those expectations put on her by parents who don't even attend parent-teacher meetings. Oh, boy. Let's not turn this into an opportunity to ish on parents. It's a partnership. Nat writes, hope she works on the customer service of teachers and administrators. Yeah, the customer service of teachers and administrators does need to be addressed in some cases, not every case. Rosemary writes, and I think she's replying to Shannon, parents have to be held responsible, then schools, then board, then community. I agree with that. Sean writes, why would you why would you, that new superintendent is here, that we will start mentoring and trying to be more active in our kids' life and those who have kids in the city of Cincinnati schools? Daryl's in the house. Good morning to you. Professional Reimbursement Network writes, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Good morning to you. CPS needed to clean house. The interim never had a shot unless a bunch of scrubs applied. That's from Fame. Rosemary writes, I think change is necessary. Okay. All right. Brandy writes, good morning. Good morning to you, Brandy. Brent writes, good morning, Nate and the Choppers. Checking in from Dallas, Texas. Kelly Prather is in the house. She writes, good morning, everyone. Kelly, you met the new superintendent. What is she like in person? Caprice is in the house. What's up, Caprice? She writes, good morning. Brent writes, block Putin returns. Okay. Sister Iris writes, the unanimous decision was to support the resolution to offer the job to the other candidate. The private vote, I was told, was 3 versus 3 with a swing vote. 3 versus 3 with a swing vote. Very interesting. Very interesting. And I wonder who everybody voted for, who everybody's preferred. Was it 3 versus 3 with a swing vote between two people? Or was there a three-way split between the three candidates? Tyree writes, she was in 2 big districts, Detroit and Duval County in Florida. She has seen diverse school districts. Alandis Powell's in the house. Good morning, Alandis. She writes, we need to give her the new board time and support. I agree. I agree with that. They made their decision. It is what it is. Sister Iris said it best, which is that we all want to see her successful because when they're successful, the babies are successful. When the babies are successful, Cincinnati's successful. Everybody wins. It's a win-win-win. Nobody wants to see anybody fail that's working with our school system. I want to see everybody in our public school system be successful because that means my son going to be successful. Even if I didn't have children in the district any longer, I would still understand. Hold on a second. I still understand how important that is. It's a very, very important thing in our city because everybody wants Cincinnati to be what it can be, right? Brother Lannis writes, good morning, Brother Nathan Ivey. Good morning to you. Now, coming up, scheduled to speak with him in a few minutes, and hopefully he's going to have no issues, but Napoleon Maddox, he's a creative. He's an artist. He's got a brand new, I'll let him explain it, but there's a showcase happening. And plus, it's been a minute. We need to catch up on his travels and see what's up with him. I haven't talked to him in a few years, and he's always been a frequent voice on the show, so we got to catch up. That's coming up at 9 a.m. this morning. Now, tomorrow, make sure you tap in. We got a brother coming in from Cincinnati named James Troop, Zoom style. Okay, so you want to make sure you check out this video feed if you can, or you can watch it later on our page. And he is another creative. He was living in Cincinnati to say, you know what, I want to do the acting thing. Moved out to L.A. Seems like, he's been finding some success. I'm watching the Super Bowl, and who do I see? I see him on Super Bowl commercials. Same thing with the AFC Championship. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm seeing a trend here, and I like it. So we'll talk with James Troop and hear more about his journey and what he's doing. Should be interesting. You may not know who he is. That doesn't really matter. But if you're somebody who's ever had a goal, if you're somebody who's ever dreamed of creating something or being something, you might want to tap in tomorrow at 9 a.m. and check that out. Then I got another brother, I can't confirm either Thursday or Friday, and he just bought a radio station. Bought a radio station. And we'll talk to him about his journey as well. I think it's either Thursday or Friday, but I haven't confirmed it yet. When I do, I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know. Caprice writes, we've had Ronan, Blackwell, Mitchell. Let's try someone new. Okay, I'm with it. Vernon writes, good morning, Nathan. Good morning to you. Sister Sandra's in the house. She writes, wonderful day. Good morning, fresh view. Roy writes, good morning, everyone. Shannon writes, sometimes organizations don't hire from within because the people were there for and possibly a part of the downfall, failure. Keeping them on staff is a courtesy. Thanks for the information from Alandis. Absolutely. I appreciate that. That's a very important clarification there. Very important, because that makes more sense to me. Because I'm like, unanimous. So I just misinterpreted when I heard it, but that makes more sense. I can see there being a split. I'm like, this board all agreed on a candidate? I'm like, Jada writes, good morning, Nathan. Good morning, Choppers. Good morning to you. Braxton writes, the school board is relatively new and probably want to hire their own superintendent. Could be. I can't wait to hear. Brother OJ's in the house. He writes, morning, Nathan, in the Choppers. Let's make it a great day. Hashtag TWE. Absolutely. Black Russia writes, the difference between Amat and Irene? Who is Irene? You mean Irenetta? Her name is Irenetta. Is outside perspective. That's one, yeah. Tabitha's in the house. She writes, good morning. Let's chop it up. Good morning, Tabitha. Danietta's in the house. She writes, we need new blood. I'm tired of the old regime doing the same old thing, expecting different results. I didn't like the interim superintendent. The issue was, what did she do differently? ? Her monthly video clips were useless. Braxton writes, remember the Metro bus debacle? That's on Amat's watch. It's not her fault, though. I don't believe it was it? Marisha writes, good morning. Good morning to you. Tari writes, nah, I'm talking about some other stuff. Okay. Ben Thomas writes, okay, to Roostafari. Danietta writes, too many people have been working in CPS for too long, letting everything fall through the cracks. I'm excited to get someone new that can bring fresh ideas, hopefully some new policies too. And I hope she cleans house and gets a new deputy superintendent too. Keeping it real as always. So I hope she cleans house and gets a new deputy superintendent. Yeah, you already know. You already know. Sean writes, good morning, King Nate and the Mighty Choppers. Nakir writes, Steve Sipple is an amazing educator. Well, he is the principal at my son's school. And at this point, I don't have anything negative to say. I have no problems. No problems. And in fact, at least in one area, I like the way he thinks. I like where his head is. He sees things the way they should be seen in this particular area without talking about too much sensitive stuff. But yeah, I don't have any issues with Steve Sipple. None whatsoever. Dale writes, CPS is failing our children. I attended a Zoom meeting and I learned CPS standards for Montessori or Walnut Hills isn't across the board. And not one person could explain that to me. I was told my child could not attend a Montessori school or have a less chance to get in because my child didn't attend a Montessori school. I call BS. We need an assessment on teachers and their ability to teach. Okay, I'm cool with that. But we also need an assessment on administrators as well and their ability to administer, right? And what's happening. Because like I said, she's coming in with some real issues. Let's not overlook what the young activist coalition came up with, YAC. Let's not overlook this because nobody's talking about the fact that they teamed up with the ACLU and start running some numbers. And what they found is that black kids in CPS were more likely to suffer exclusionary discipline. Let's not overlook that. That's administration. That's teachers and administration. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've talked to a lot of parents who've had, let's say, a less than expected customer service experience dealing with administrators. All of these issues have to be addressed. Now, can you put all this on her feet and on day one? No. I feel the same way about the new superintendent as I do the new city council. Let's give them some time. Let's give them some time to learn the job and figure out what's going on, and then we can accurately assess them. I would say the same thing with her at this point. But I am curious. I'm going to reach out to each and every school board member and ask them how they voted. I'm just very curious and how they arrived at their vote. Adele writes, if I had money, I'd put my children in Catholic school. Really? Ben writes, umpire wrestling will be in Georgia. Oh, okay. I'll let y'all have that conversation. TNT writes, have the pandemic not taught CPS anything? Virtual PTA meetings should have remained an option for parents who have a lot to do and cannot always make it in person. Good morning to you. Now, as I said, I'm scheduled to get a Zoom style call from a brother named Napoleon Maddox, and I see he's backstage. Napoleon, can you hear me, brother? Just kind of wave if you can hear me. Oh, okay, he can hear me. Okay, well, with no further ado, let me bring the brother straight on. What up? What's up, man? It's been a minute, man.
It's been a minute, yes, sir. Well, it's been a minute for you. It's been a minute since you've seen me. I've been seeing you. I check in every now and then on your show from abroad.
Okay, great to hear, brother. Yeah. I love the background. What's that in the background?
That's one of the paintings I started over in France. I brought it home to have some vibes on both sides when I get home and do my work here. When I come home, I could see some of the work that I'm doing on this side.
All right. It's beautiful, man. I like it. I can't wait to see it in person, man. So now listen, we go way back. We've been having these conversations off and on for years, but for the folks who might be seeing you for the first time and are not aware of who you are and what you do and what you bring into the culture and the world, just kind of talk about yourself a little bit so people can be familiar with you.
Yeah, man. I'm homegrown right here in the Natty. I mean, I wasn't born here, but this is the only place that I've known as home is Cincinnati. Are you still there?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here. I just put you on the screen.
Oh, okay. Okay, got you. Okay. Yeah. So I grew up here in Cincinnati. I'm a North Sider, and I've always been my family is pretty particular. Both my folks, they met in Massachusetts, but they come from the deep South. So they brought a lot of that. There's a strong diasporic, strong African culture in the deep South. And so I grew up with that. And then I start meeting people that really start connecting me with what that's all about, like what's behind a lot of my particularisms, if you could use that word. I've always blended that with my love for the arts and creativity. And so when I'm performing and because I'm so in the community, in the Cincinnati community, I've always gravitated towards mentors in jazz and hip hop, DJing, visual arts, poetry, etc. And so I gotta say, I'm blessed to be. I'm a strong character, man, because I take all of that. I realize that I'm standing on really high, strong shoulders, and so I practiced that a lot when I was here in Cincinnati, and then around the world when I go to travel. So recently, in the last couple years, I've been just before the pandemic started, I started a long-term residency in France, in a town called Besançon near Switzerland. And the interesting thing about that place is that it's near a fortress called Chateau de Joux in an area called Franche-Comté. And that's where Napoleon Bonaparte, that other Napoleon, imprisoned Toussaint Louverture, the first successful revolutionary against enslavement. And he fought, he and the enslaved people in Haiti, the enslaved Africans in Haiti, fought for their independence and won against the Empire of France. And so a part of my work there creatively has been to celebrate that strong, powerful ancestor, brother Toussaint Louverture. And so that's my most recent work. So we could talk a while about different things that I've been blessed to do, but that's the thing that I'm really focused on right now is the work of Toussaint Louverture.
Okay, that's dope. I want to hear all about it, man. And I want to make sure we promote. Man. You got an upcoming event coming up. I want to hit that multiple times in the conversation. But just so people know, we met back at WAVE. You was doing your thing at WAVE.
Yep.
I was doing the WAVE. You just connect. I was telling people like, man, Nap's one of those kind of people you just cannot dislike. Like, you know what I'm saying? You just got that kind of personality, man. You know what I'm saying? Nobody dislikes you, do they? I bet you ain't never had a beef with anybody, have you?
Bro, I've had a beef. I've had a few beefs, but I really do my best to squash them or if we can't, sometimes, we do ourselves injustice trying to squash all beefs. So what we do is to come up with terms of conditions of functionality. How can we function? We know that we're not going, as the OGs used to say, we know we're not going to set horses. So, you know, how can we work it out? How can we come to a terms where we're not taking each other out, destroying each other?
Right, right.
And there's something, if you notice, because I love stories and narrative and good film, good cinema. And if you notice in all the classic, the well done gangster flicks, the cat that's the most gangster is always the one that's really, really actually trying to seek peace and resolution. And so, yeah, I think that's the most important thing. I've had some beefs, but I would say probably 95, 98% of them I've been able to resolve situations. But thank you. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Oh, most definitely. I might have actually, as you explained, I was thinking, a principal man gonna always have come at odds with the world, even as I was saying it. So maybe I should put that a different way. But I think you know what I was trying to say. It's a compliment, most def. But are you still touring with Is What?
Yeah, actually, the second thing that I did once I got home is that we just actually played yesterday at a school with Is What. So we do these great, we have these opportunities to go into schools sponsored by the Cincinnati Artists Association, which is housed in the Aronoff Center. And they send us to schools all around the region, actually, for as far south as and east as Eastern Kentucky, Augusta, Kentucky. We went there one time. Yesterday, we were down in Florence at a school that was which is an awesome school. The staff was really warm and welcoming, and you could tell that they support the very diverse school population there. And I don't know where all those young people came from, but you could see they look like America, or they look like the world, if you will. People with all kind of different backgrounds. They're at that school. So anyway, we to answer your question, yes, we do. We still tour with Is What. A lot of the work that we do recently has been more in this region, but we still get out into the world, on a yearly basis, and usually to do the performance of another performance that talks about history is a performance of Millie Christine Twice the First Time, which talks about the true story of the aunts of my grandmother, and they were conjoined or Siamese twins, connected at the hip, and they were born in 1851. And they lived for 61 years that way. So that means that they survived enslavement and they survived voyeurism, and they came out of that story victorious. And so we tell that story in that show, and Is What is an important part of that show, and we tour with that. So that's a work that we started doing in late 2016, 2017.
Before we get too deep in the conversation, I know you got an event coming up, man. Tell us what's going on and when and where and how can people be involved?
Yeah, so it's this Thursday. It's at a place called Wave Pool down in Camp Washington. And so Wave Pool is a gallery and an incubator for creatives in Cincinnati area. And so we're having a announcement party, a launch party for the Underworld Jazz Festival, also known as the Underworld Black Arts Festival. And we should put a pin in that and come back to the duality, the two names that we got going there. But it's this Thursday, and what we're doing is launching the season, because we have several things that will happen building up to the festival, which is in October. And so what's going to happen this Thursday is we're going to announce the different projects we have coming up, and then put a big spotlight on the October festival. And that's this Thursday. It starts at 6:30, and it's at Wave Pool. The other interesting thing about it is that we're going to have art that I've created in France that I brought home. Not specifically this piece, but some pieces in this style, large pieces, and then I'll tell you about the technique as well. So my art, the art by Brian Greer, people know that in the hip hop circles might know of him as Boogie Bang, and then art of the phenomenal, incredible G Horton. I don't know. Do you know G Horton? You know his work?
I know his work, but I've never met the man.
Yeah, come through. You got to meet the man. He's incredible. He's
I've heard good things about him.
Leader. Yeah, he's awesome artist and an incredible human being. So we're auctioning that artwork as a way to raise funds supporting the educational programming of the Underworld Black Arts Festival.
Huh. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm with it. So is there an admission price to get in, or is it the auction where you're trying to raise the money?
Yeah, there is no admission price to get in, because even if people don't buy art, we want them to come through and just be aware of what we're doing, be aware of the programming. And this is actually a type of programming, because we're also putting a spotlight on Black artists altogether. There will be a dancer, great dancer. I don't want to give it all away, but so there's going to be a dance performance. There'll be poetic performance. There'll be a presentation by an organization called Black Achievers in conjunction with the Common Good Alliance. So we're pulling it all together: community, art, activism, awareness, networking, and there'll be food, But we are asking people to RSVP, because as there's no admission, it's free of charge. We trying to be sure that we gauge how many people we need to be prepared to host and welcome. And the address is, what is the address? It's on Coleraine Avenue. 2930, 2940. Let me see if I can.
He said 2930, 2940. That sounds good. 2950.
I'm checking, because now you know how it is when you know where something is. You don't even think about the address. You just go. It's 2940 Coleraine Avenue.
2940. You got can I grab a flyer from your Facebook page? I think you got one up right there. I could put it on the screen for the people.
Yeah, definitely.
The 2940. That's hilarious.
And it's the beautiful invites. Is it showing up reversed?
Nah, it's coming up good. I can see it's a little blurry, but we can see it. Underworld. I love it, man. Underworld Black Arts Festival. I'm with the business. I'm with it.
Yeah. Now let me tell you about the name real quick, because this is the 4th year that we're doing this festival officially. I mean, I've been doing other programming with me and the team is what, and then my dear partner, Kim Gorey. We've been building for a while, doing different events, but back in 2018, we started the Underworld Jazz Festival. And the programming that we're doing, for this year and that we're announcing is still in the same spirit. But we found that there are a lot of people that don't see the links. Like when I talk about jazz, I'm not talking about just a genre of music, and I'm not talking about Kenny G, and I'm not talking about something fluffy elevator music. For me, jazz indicates Black thought. Jazz indicates the fact that we will take what we are, the situation we're given, and improvise and work with it and recontextualize it. So you can't talk about hip hop, you can't talk about Drake, you can't talk about Migos, you can't talk about Rihanna, Jay-Z, or Kanye. You can't talk about none of that stuff without being touched by jazz. And the same spirit is true in our visual arts, in our dance. And so when we say Underworld Jazz Festival, we start realizing that people weren't getting that linkage. They were seeing that as a word that belongs to a whole different demographic, as a word, something that belongs to somebody else. But that's us, that's ours. And we need to share that, continue to share that from the perspective that taking ownership, as the classic Gang Starr album, The Owners, taking
Well, speaking of
that
albums,
space.
Right. Speaking of albums, you talking about jazz, man. Were you a fan of that Guru's Jazzmatazz series? I think he had volume 1, volume 2. I think we might have talked about this back in the day.
I think he had like 4 volumes.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah. And I think my favorite is probably the second or the third. But when he got Shaka Khan involved, bro, it was a wrap. Yeah. It was a wrap. Yeah.
Were you as an artist informed by it? Were you fueled by it?
It definitely it influenced me. I mean, I was already really headed that direction. I started a band in high school, my junior and senior year of high school. And I got a bunch of cats together, guys that I knew could play music. And I was the MC, the writer, and they came up with stuff. And so it was a live band, back there I graduated in another time period, but it was, that was back when, so Jazzmatazz didn't exist yet. when we were doing that. So when Jazzmatazz came, I was ready for it. You know, when the Roots came, that was an exciting era.
Oh yeah.
When Low End Theory dropped, and Guru's Jazzmatazz Volume 1, Diggable Planets, and then the Roots came just after that. I was ready. I was ready. I was like, yeah, they doing it. So I was definitely a fan of the Jazzmatazz series.
What do you think about, because you're of this, and again, you were a creative way before people use that word, man. You know what I'm saying? Have you always been creative? When did you know that you was a creative, even though we didn't use that word 10, 20 years ago?
Bruh,
You strike me as the kind of dude that was always been doing something creative,
always,
in some way.
always. And some of the stuff I was doing before I realized that that's what I was doing. Like there's a brother that was around me when I was in some formative years, and he was one of the community leaders, like in our church community, and we would go on these camping trips, and I would just be telling him about movies that I saw, and I would retell the whole stories, and I would paint it. And he told me years later as an adult, he was like, I always remember how you would tell stories. And for me, I was just excited to be talking to somebody and being able to share something that was exciting to me. But he was like, you such a vivid picture. And so even way back then, I was a storyteller, but not just telling somebody what happened. I would like paint a picture, and I would reenact the different characters and do impressions. And that made an impression on him, even when I was like, a kid. Like really, I wasn't even a teenager yet, and I was already expressing myself that way. And of course, I got into hip hop really early. My sisters and I would sing together in church from I was like 5 years old when we started singing together. Then I was always sketching and drawing stuff. And then at different points in my life, certain styles of expression, certain modes of expression took precedent. And that's the interesting thing about this work that you see behind me, is that I had already been really very much a visual artist, but because music and touring and producing a show on WAIF, things like that took precedent, then I didn't spend as much time on my visual art. But during the confinement, the blessing of the pandemic was that I couldn't tour. I couldn't practice my principal art. So I had to eat every day. And in France, when you buy your bread and your fruits and vegetables, it comes in this kind of craft paper, and some of it has writing on it, but they always have a paper that your bread comes in, or when you get your fruits and vegetables, it's not put in plastic, it's put in paper. So I was like, this is some nice paper, sitting at home, not home. This is home, sitting over in my apartment over there in France in confinement. And I didn't want to throw the paper away. I try to be as sustainable as possible, as green as possible. And I started sketching on these pieces of paper. And I was like, on my wall in front of me, I was like, I could see some lips right there. I just want to put some lips. And then I realized in a short time that actually I'm creating a self-portrait, and something that took up about, 24 inches became something that took up a whole wall, and it was a face. And so there's another portrait like this at my apartment in Besançon. That's it looks like I'm in space. Like Kim says, when she sees photos of it, it's like I'm one of those faces on Star Trek when they go on the monitor, and then you just see you're like, we're the Voltrons, and we want you to get out of our galaxy or whatever. So it's a big face on the wall. So I've done this same style. So what to be sure that I'm explaining clearly what you're seeing behind you. All of that, what you see behind me, is pieces of wrapping paper that they use on the bread, all glued together. So it's a collage. And then on top of that, I've used acrylic to paint the portrait. So I've used that same style to do two portraits, large portraits of Toussaint Louverture, the Haitian revolutionary. And so those will be on display on Thursday. And they're actually bigger than this. And if you see on my Facebook, you'll see some photos of that artwork being displayed on stage when we perform, because we performed the show in Paris at New Morning Jazz Club last Wednesday. And it almost has like a 3D effect. So I'm really grateful because if I'm sure that had it not been for the pandemic, it might have been a few more years before I actually took the time to really immerse myself into my visual art practice.
Huh. That's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. So, like, you know, your creativity has expressed itself in multiple ways, like as a stage performer to some degree. And I'm not talking as an MC. I mean, like, you know, performing. And then as an MC and now as a visual artist. Is there any other dimension to your creativity that you've yet to express?
You know what, I've always been impressed by orators or public speakers, and specifically the role that comedians and humorists play. And I dabbled in that for a while, like in the early some years ago. And I never gotten back to it, but I would like to really work with some writers that know how to write comic material and satirical material. So that's something that I haven't really delved into as much as I would like to. Um, I'm also a producer, so doing my music production, compositions, I would say, not just beats, but like things that are developed, and from DJ Premier to Quincy Jones to there's a lot of great composers and producers that do contemporary music. Anderson .Paak, Dre, and so I'm really starting to get more into that. But I'm sure I know that there's untapped territory in that realm that I want to get deeper into. But I've always played a big role in producing Is What albums, and I haven't produced really other artists. I've mainly been a producer for myself because my work is really, really specific.
Very interesting. Napoleon Maddox is my guest, and
yes,
he's a creative. He's a creative. And speaking of which, I want to get your opinion about the creative scene in Cincinnati, and in particular, the Black creative scene. Like, what's the current state of the scene, right, for Black creatives in Cincinnati, and what do you see in the near future, or creatives in general?
That's a good. I love that question. I love the thought of that. But to be 100, to keep it 100 with you, every time I come home, I'm rediscovering little nooks and crannies that I have been only slightly aware of. Or what I really love the most is that when I come home and I see the growth of people that I have known for a while. There's a group called Patterns of Chaos, or POC. And I've known about them for a few years, and we've had them on the festival. I think the first year that we had the festival in 2018. And I always thought they had something special, but I got to see them last when I was home around the holidays, and we were just blown away by the growth and by the sophistication and by the power, like the brute force. Like, they took the stage and they took the audience and they shook us. And I was like, yeah, we got to have them back on the festival again. So they're definitely going to be a group. But what I want to say is that there's a lot of stuff that I don't know happening in Cincinnati, and networks that are developing and people that I'm hearing about, but I'm not really knowing what it is. Some exciting stuff is there's this Lex Nicole with the Red Light Jazz series and her collaboration with G Horton. And G Horton did a performance piece that I missed called For Love of Black Men, which was a follow-up on Lex's Love of Black Women. There are more people doing interdisciplinary stuff. There's Patterns of Chaos, as I said. What else? Elements is doing some interesting things where it's no longer just the Elements Hip Hop Youth Center, but it's Elements Hip Hop Culture Center. So I think that they're going in a direction to pull in more of the community and to really establish themselves as a cultural entity in the Black community. I know that Toy Lynn O'Neill is doing some exciting things. I'm excited to see there's a new exhibit at the Kennedy Heights Community Arts Center. I'm not sure if I'm saying the name exactly right. So actually, when I get home, I'm never really able to see all that's going on. So that, to me, that I feel like that's a good sign. It's not just like, okay, there's one sector, there's one group of people doing things. It seems like it's a lot of different stuff going on, despite of having to slowly come back out of the COVID.
That's fair. That's honest. I appreciate it. On my end, the way you described it, I see it too. I don't know everything, but I see things here and there happening, right? I see people doing things. I keep, in my head, I think that Cincinnati has an opportunity to be a hub for creatives. It's got to be done with a lot of intentionality, but I see a lot of seeds being planted, right? Different people doing different things. I'm like, oh, okay, I can see what that could become. And if that becomes this and that becomes that, then together it becomes a culture. That's how I look at it.
Exactly. Yep. It does to me. I mean, it's people throw words around a lot, and so it's a little bit risky to say it's a renaissance, but I'd like to aspire to that and think of all the beauty and power that came out of the Harlem Renaissance, and use that as something to aspire to, even if prematurely, at the risk of being called pretentious or whatever, at the risk of that, saying, you know what, we bold enough to say that we can recreate that, we can aspire to that. That's something noble, that's something beautiful to aspire to, and we have a kind of a blueprint, or a kind of, we know that it's possible because it existed. So that excites me. And I also find that the difficulty of being continually, it's always the difficulty of being here in America has always given us some creative motivation. And the 4 years that we spent under in the Trump years, and even actually before the Trump years, in the backlash of the Obama years, when some people couldn't support the fact that there was a brown man in the White House, that gave us the level of backlash, I think, really inspired a lot of Black art. And then the Trump years continue to build on that. But that's really a part of the American story, I feel.
No, I think you're right about that. Yeah, it did trigger a lot of Black art for sure. Absolutely. In a really good and hopefully positive way moving into the future. Speaking of art, I see that piece behind you. Is any of that for sale, or is that just for you? This is just you being creative. But if somebody wanted to purchase your art, is there a way for them to do that?
They can purchase my art. You can, outside of being what we want people to focus on coming and participating in the auction on this Thursday. But outside of that, you can inbox me. I'm easy to find on Instagram, on Facebook, and then if you know the right people, you can also just email me directly or call me directly. But yeah, my art is available. This piece right here belongs to Kim, so I'll get in trouble if I sell that. Yeah, I have a work that's available. My work is available for purchase.
Now, I know you've done a lot of travels over the years. Have you ever traveled to the Ukraine or anywhere near the Ukraine?
Wow. I have been near the Ukraine, but I have not been in the Ukraine. I've been probably almost on all. I've been in that corner a lot, in that corner of the world a lot, but I haven't been to Ukraine.
What's that corner of the world like?
It's interesting. The first time I went somewhere, the closest place that I can remember that I've gone for sure is Romania. And we landed in Bucharest. I can't remember where we were flying from, but we flew into Bucharest. And I was like, when I saw the buildings and how this was like around 2006, I think. And the way the buildings just looked like they were from an old movie. And I really understood the impact of the Soviet era. And it was beautiful and shockingly gray and sad at the same time. And so that was the strongest impression that's what stuck with me. Besides it being interesting, besides the cultural exchange that I was able to have, that really impacted me. I was like, wow, this is really another thing. This is real. Like when we talk about the Cold War and we talk about the Soviet era, I was able to see the impact of that on Romanian society and architecture.
What's the one place, I may have asked you before, but what's the one place you wish that every black American could visit? You think they would get something out of it? I know you've done a lot of traveling.
Wow. If you say one place,
or several places, if that would be a better way to answer it.
Well, I would say anywhere. I would say anywhere outside of America, not just to go and leave and never come back, but to get some perspective on because once you leave here, as a black person, you understand that USA could be United States of Africa. And what I'm saying is that our impact here is so, to use the word, omnipresent, that we don't realize how much we've done here, how much we've influenced this place, how much we built this place, and how much this is ours. But we have to go away to realize our value here, and also to realize that as much as that's true, this is not the only game on the block. That there are other ways of living, other ways of doing things. That being said, some of the places that I really dream of going, that I have plans to go, and probably would have been there already had not been for the pandemic, is I want to go to Senegal. I want to go to Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. I want to go to Ghana. I've been to Morocco a few times, and I already felt like, okay, yeah, this Africa is something really special, something powerful here, that we need to experience. So that's not twofold answer so far as outside of the States, definitely to the continent of Africa. And then, I gotta say, like when you spend time in Paris and you see certain communities, basically anything, different. Once you get on the ground and you leave the places like the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower and all the popular places, get off the tourist tracks and go into communities and just interact with folk and see how rich and diverse the world is, not just in terms of African culture, but in terms of all the possibilities that exist out there in the world. And that if we make the effort to communicate and to connect with people across cultural barriers, across language barriers, using body language, listening long enough to understand what people are saying, even though they speak in another language, it changes you profoundly, and Brother Baba Kurt Stanford, ancestor OG Kurt Stanford, used to always say when he would see me after some travel, he was like, "Yeah, brother, that's the way to do it. You got to travel." Malcolm used to say, "Travel is good because it broadens your perspective." There's another way. He said it a different way. There was a more poetic, more profound way that he said it. But when I think of travel, when I think of the work that I'm doing, I think of Baba Kurt Stanford. Maybe he rest in peace. That was a big influence on me in the community right here in Cincinnati.
Right,
Baba Kurt.
Absolutely. I met the brother a few times. Very powerful presence. Very powerful presence.
Yeah.
Before we roll out, man, just one more time, tell everybody about the event, where it is, when it is, and what's going on.
Yes, the event is this Thursday, March 3rd, 6:30 at Wave Pool Gallery. It's the Underworld Black Arts Festival launch party and art auction. And the address is 2940 Coleraine Avenue. And we encourage people to RSVP either on Facebook or Eventbrite, or they can also RSVP by emailing osnrevents@gmail.com. And there'll be performance and food, and our host is actually going to be, you might know Brother King Solomon, artist, entrepreneur from Green Ideas and Wellness. He's our host for the
event. Not offhand, but again, I plan on coming out, man. It's been a minute since I saw you, so I want to come out and connect with you for a minute, man. Show my support.
It would be a blessing to see you in the flesh, man.
Yeah, for sure, brother. Listen, Napoleon has
Tell
always
me about
been
that T-shirt though. What's on your T-shirt right there?
Yeah, man, I was at a Black Mental Health Awareness event over the weekend, and they were giving out these T-shirts.
Okay.
It's a local organization just promoting, positive things about brothers and their mental health.
Okay.
You know me, I stay about us, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Well, listen, brother, I really appreciate your time, man. It's great seeing you. I could talk to you for another hour, literally, and just catch up and take the conversation all kind of ways. But we can do that later, man, now that you're in the city. Wish you the best, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, man. Much respect and appreciation. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Oh, most definitely, man. Take it easy. That's Napoleon Maddox, everybody. Appreciate his time. That's a good brother right there, creative brother. And, we're very, very friendly. I'm not saying I'm like his best friend or anything like that, but definitely a lot of respect. Met him at WAIF, and I don't remember the exact moment. I was doing a show with a partner, and there was just so many people on Fridays, man. It was a really great experience. It just sharpened me and helped me become better at what I was doing. It gave me a different perspective to meet those different brothers that was doing the shows on Fridays, because that was kind of like the black night, you know what I'm saying? But it was just some very interesting people, very powerful personalities, powerful intellects, powerful creatives that I got a chance to rub elbows with. So, we've stayed in touch via social media, and I saw he was doing this event, wanted to do my part. But very interesting. So hopefully I'll see him soon. Looking forward to it. 513-873-7134. If you'd like to share your thoughts this morning, just to reiterate things, my son had a dream that someone was attacking Cincinnati. He woke up this morning. He has a dream catcher in his room. He walked into our room this morning and said, "You know what, Mom, Dad, my dream catcher isn't working." A dream catcher is supposed to catch or keep away bad dreams or whatever. He had a bad dream. I was like, "What was it all about?" He said, "Explosions." Little 7-year-old boy voice. "Explosions?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, there's a one country he's taking over another country." I was like, aha. The never-ending war coverage is sort of penetrating the psyche of our children. And they're getting it secondhand because we're watching television screens, or we're talking about it, or it's on our phone, or it's on our laptop or our tablet, and they're getting it secondhand from our reaction. So how do you talk to your children about the things that adults do? It's the burden of every parent. It's the burden of every parent. We've also talked about the fact that CPS has a brand new superintendent. Her name is Ira Netta Wright, and I've been taking your opinion about how you feel about her. And there was an internal candidate, Tiana Yamat, who was a deputy superintendent, and now she's going to go back to that. The question was asked last night. I think somebody in the media asked that question, so now we know. We found out that there was a split on the board. Perhaps it was 3-3 with a swing vote, because there's 7 members of the Cincinnati Public School Board, which makes sense. You want an odd number to make sure you can always get a majority vote on the various things that you vote on. All right, we got that. So what was the difference? I mean, we're just doing what we do. We chop things up. This is what we do, especially things that matter too much to us as much as this. But now I want to move on. I want to add something else, should I say, because you can always talk about whatever. You got a comment about Napoleon, and somebody said they went to his Twitter page. Cool, he's a good brother. He's an artist who's expressed himself in different ways. But I want to move on, and I want to talk about this case that happened down in Florida. A man named Corey Marino Jr. is now being charged with attempted murder on police officers. My question for you is, should he be charged? Should Corey Marino Jr. be charged? You may or may not be aware of this story. You may or may not be aware of this story, but I want to hip you the game a little bit. I want to get your thoughts on it in the time that we have left. This is what we do. We talk about multiple things. So let me give you the backstory. So Mr. Corey Marino, and the narrative is going to be very similar to, Breonna Taylor. Mr. Corey Marino was at home sleeping with his 2 children when somebody broke into his door. He didn't know who they were. They were unannounced. He got his firearm. He is legally registered to carry a firearm. Did it the right way. And he started bucking shots. Well, what he realized after firing at least one round is that it was police officers who were he wasn't even really the target. They were looking for what? I don't know, stolen electronics, I believe I got from the story. If somebody's got better information on this, then please let me know, because I don't want to be inaccurate. You can make whatever corrections are necessary to it, but that's how I understand it. So Mr. Corey Morneau Jr. is 24 years old. He was recently bonded out, $50,000 bond. And now he's been charged with attempted murder of a police officer because law enforcement, Pensacola Police SWAT team entered his home for, they had a search warrant looking for an electronic. So I don't know, what does that mean? So there was like some stolen electronics or something like that. And so they were served. He wasn't like, they weren't looking for him. He wasn't a felon. He's a licensed gun owner. He's at home with his kids sleeping. Somebody break into his home. He don't know who it is. He fires at least one shot. And then when he realized it was police, as I understand it from the news reports, he immediately put his gun down and he walked outside with his hands out. So he surrendered to police. But he's been charged with murder. And I'd like to know, wait a minute, what do you think about that? Should he have been charged? I mean, they were police. They'll probably say that we identified themselves. He'll probably say I didn't hear them. Family members say that he was simply protecting his home and his family from what he thought were intruders. I bring this up because there's a lot of pressure to change these no-knock warrants across the country in the wake of what happened to Breonna Taylor. Smart people and smart in these cities should be having a conversation with their local law enforcement, police agency or whatever the case may be, sheriff department, whatever it might be, about what is your process, what's your policy on no-knock warrants, because it seems to be it seems to be not a good idea. For police, this is not safe for police to just be walking in people's houses in the times that we live in. But this man's been charged with attempted murder of a law enforcement officer for allegedly shooting at an officer. But was he really shooting at an officer, or was he shooting at an intruder? Oops, my bad. I didn't know you were an officer. Just something I thought that I get your thoughts about as at this part of the show. If you got an opinion, please share it. Now you can call into the show this morning at 513-873-7134, or you can always just chat as well. Again, feel free to talk about anything and everything we've talked about so far. Ray's in the chop shop. She writes, good risings all. Good morning to you, Ray. Good morning to Ray and Renee. Good morning to you. Greg writes, has your son been watching the news? I'm sorry to hear that. No, he hasn't. Now, we watch the news, and the wifey watches the news. Probably like when I'm on the air, she's getting ready to, she's probably got the news on in our bedroom. You know how it is when you got kids. They're coming in and out of your bedroom and all this kind of stuff. It is what it is. So maybe the TV's on. So he's picking it up that way. I'm sure that's definitely happened, but it's just very interesting the way a 7-year-old boy's mind processes the war coverage. So then I went online and went to just a couple of websites, and I'm like, it's war coverage, wall to wall. And for good reason. This conflict could ensnare the United States in some kind of way. A lot of people saying the United States should do something, and I get it. We talk about Russia and nuclear weapons and all this kind of stuff. The Ukraine used to, but they gave them up in an agreement with the USSR. So they don't have them anymore. And they gave up their weapons in exchange for an agreement from the USSR to respect their sovereignty. Now look what's happening. What I've noticed is this is the reason why nuclear proliferation is inevitable. Because in the international system of transacting players and actors, there is anarchy. There is no overarching organization that every country has to listen to. It's basically might makes right. So what I've seen in my adulthood life is that those that have nuclear weapons don't get F with. You got nuclear weapons, you don't get F with. When you do, when you don't have nuclear weapons, look at what happened to Saddam Hussein. When you do have nuclear weapons, look at how we did with North Korea. It just leads to more proliferation, in my opinion, or to proliferation. But what do you think? Good morning. Good morning. What do you think about that case in Pensacola? Should he have been charged with attempted murder and he had no idea what was going on? Why the overcharge? Is it sort of like the protect the blue automatic response right? Anytime an officer is in danger, we got to do whatever we got to do to protect them and send a message type of thing. But I don't get it. Nakia writes, the officer never identified themselves. Mika writes, why is he being charged? He was protecting his family. He didn't know who kicked in the door. Once he found out, he put his hands up. Right, as I understand it, once he found out, he put the gun down and walked outside with his hands up, which had to be a long walk because you don't know what's going to happen. And then I read that his two sons are put in temporary protection. But somebody dropped one of his boys. I saw an image this morning, his son's face. They got a GoFundMe. They're trying to raise money for this family and perhaps even medical expenses. So they put dad in cuffs. He goes to lockup. The two kids go into temporary protective custody. While they're in custody, oops, my bad, we just dropped your son on his face. I'm not making this up. Huh? Did they really drop his son? Or was it kind of like, oh, your father liked to shoot at cops. Here's what you get. That's what I thought. Brandon writes, the police need to make sure they have the right information before kicking in the doors. Yeah, of course, but should they be kicking indoors? That's the question. Like if you think somebody's about to be murdered, kick in the door. If you think a child's been kidnapped or you're dealing with human trafficking, kick in the damn door. But if you're looking for a stolen Xbox, don't kick in the door. If you're looking for a stolen flat screen TV, it ain't that serious. If you're talking about a bunch of drugs, it ain't that serious. That's just me. That's just me. Sister Iris writes, I'll send over the latest version of CBD's no-knock warrant policies. The community pushed for change after Breonna Taylor. We also made changes to the regular warrant policies. And I know that to be true because, she and some other folks came on the show and talked about that. And that's what I'm saying. Smart people don't wait until a tragedy happens in your backyard. Smart people look at the news, and when they see things like Breonna Taylor, they ask themselves, could that happen here? And they go find out and try to change the policy so it can happen here. That's what smart people do. That's the smartest thing in the world you can do is learn from somebody else's mistake. That no-knock warrant policy is only going to get people killed. It's going to get innocent civilians killed, and it's going to get law enforcement shot and killed because people have a heightened sense of insecurity. They got a heightened sense of being a victim of crime. Hell, if you've been a victim of crime, you really got a super high sense of being a victim of crime. You ain't going out like that again. You be over my dead body. Believe me, I know. You ain't going out like that again. Somebody get the drop on you and pull a weapon on you, you're going to make sure next time we both going to put weapons on each other. We both live in this world. So I get it, but just not a smart idea. I don't think the man should be charged at all. The officers involved need to just get over it. I mean, it is what it is. Greg writes, can you imagine the nightmares of children in Ukraine who have to hide in bomb shelters? ? The nightmares of kids in Syria who had to hide in bomb shelters, who have lost parents? ? When elephants fight, the grass suffers. Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right about that, Greg. I mean, we rarely think about how this impacts children. It's just grown-ups being grown-ups, to make it really, really, really simple. Tomorrow we're scheduled to get a Zoom style call from a brother named James Troop. He's an actor. He's lived in Cincinnati for a long time. He said, you know what? I want to live my best life. Moved out to the West Coast, and now I'm seeing him in Super Bowl commercials. And I saw, maybe he posted this yesterday, that apparently he's going in for his first leading role. I thought he may have an interesting story to share with us. You know me, I'm all about stories, man. A friend once told me that a good story is currency in heaven. A good story is currency in heaven. You ain't got no money. Everybody wearing robes and sandals. All you got is a good story. Work with it. So perhaps we'll bring some more to you this week, starting tomorrow. Have an excellent rest of your day, family, and I plan to be back with you and hopefully better than ever tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8 a.m. Remember our motto: winners focus on winning, and losers focus on winners. So stay focused and stay winning, and we'll talk real soon. Until next time, I'm Nate Ivey, and I'm out.
Yeah, talking to my mirror like I love you so much. Curving on my critics like I heard you, so what? You can't kill my confidence, I think I'm the man. Tally all the I ever gave on my head. Lately I've been living like I can't take a loss. They ain't wanna help me, that's what made me a boss. You can't kill my confidence, I think I'm the man. We don't give a that's what they don't understand.
Back like flu season, I broke record, I loose leaf, and I'm coming down my roof, leaving. Don't give a I don't care. Did the by my lonesome, no wonder now I'm on one. No shortcuts on that long run. All I really want is my share. Get him, I got him, I told him it's nothing. In the discussion, go them